Helmet seal malfunction.
The Callisto Protocol is definitely one of the most debated games of 2022 for sure. Some loved its atmosphere, gameplay mechanics, the combat and the horror elements, and some are not positive like the majority it seems. Unfortunately, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, I belong to the latter. I might even make a hot take here, but I would go far and say that it was one of the most disappointing games of 2022, alongside with Dying Light 2. I'll try to mention why I see the Callisto Protocol as a disappointment quite detailedly, and I will also try to talk about what the Callisto Protocol offers to inform you folks. Maybe it's not necessary for me to say this, but I prefer to inform my viewers about the games from different genres, talking about those games' strong and weak points, why I like it, and then leave the final decision to you guys. I wanted to say this beforehand, since I don't want to look like a hater right from the start. And yes, the Callisto Protocol didn't offer me a memorable journey, nor a thrilling experience, nor much fun with its combat or concept. It just felt so mediocre overall, and it seemed like they focused on creating the sole successor of Dead Space series rather than making a unique, memorable horror survival game. Such an unfortunate, wasted potential, to be honest. Our journey begins with a cargo ship pilot Jacob as he travels from one planet to another, showing no care, no affection to anything happening around him, and we as the players understand this as Jacob shows no remorse, no pity to events that he sees on the screen. The planet Europa seemed to be attacked by some plague or a bioweapon, turning civilians into grotesque monsters, necromorphs even. It seems that this attacked Europa is organized by a terrorist group and threatening the order of the galaxy, though Jacob doesn't care about these events at all. As Jacob was doing a delivery job with his partner and heading to infamous Black Iron prison, their ship's been boarded by these terrorists or rebel forces, whatever you call it, of this world. Jacob manages to avoid these terrorists, but his ship is damaged in progress and the ship crashes into the cold world of Callisto, which really looks like the frozen wastes of Dead Space 3, and this might be the first sign, maybe a foreshadow that the Callisto Protocol won't be like the original Dead Space at all. Even though Jacob tries to explain himself and says that the woman from the boys attacked his ship, no one listens to him. They implant a health bar that is supposed to make this game Dead Space again and throw him off to the Black Iron prison full of murderers, space evildoers. But things go south quite quickly. Jacob wakes up and the whole prison is in a riot, cells are burning, there are weird grotesque like mutant necromorphs around, inmates killing each other, and it's up to Jacob and his close quarter combat skills to survive. The whole ambience, inmates killing each other, deformed monsters do not bring the horror elements at all, but I would rather call it beat 'em up with horror elements. Some might even find it similar to the combat of God of War, I believe, since the whole fighting mechanics either depend on your close combat reflexes, when to defend, dodge and attack once again, or wasting your ammo on your enemies and doing combos like hitting the enemy first and then finishing it with a close range fire. And by saying beat 'em up with horror elements, I'm not joking or exaggerating at all, sadly. Basically, the level progress or the button that you need to push to continue your progress might be locked until you clear that room from enemies, hence eliminating the whole horror and the survival ambience that Dead Space has and the Callisto Protocol supposed to have. I'm not mistaken here, am I? I believe the producer of the Callisto Protocol and even its director literally marketed this game as sole successor of Dead Space and as a AAA big budget horror game as far as I believe, right? Pushing players to clear the room full of enemies, not motivating to use stealth or rather your head, is quite unfortunate for me at least. There can be someone who can love this whole action horror elements, however, if I were to be honest, I believe horror game veterans do not belong to these people. If you're not in the horror games a lot, then you might like this approach and have fun, but I'm not those kind of people. Like for example, if I were to give an example of Silent Hill with combat priority would be either Silent Hill Homecoming or Downpour that are seen as weak before and even now. When compared to Dead Space, the Callisto Protocol is also weak. Needless to say, not just due to its combat, but also due to its horror and survival elements, and also due to its story, unfortunately. During my 11 hours of experience, I just couldn't shake the feeling of wasted potential that I had, compared it to other both new and old memorable horror titles, and wanted to have like the similar experience that those games offered. I wanted to have a disturbing yet thrilling experience like I had with First Evil Within. That did not happen to be the case. What started as the suffering ties that bind in space slowly turned into more like a Resident Evil 5 on a frozen planet with more mutations and a bit Resident Evil-like villain motive, so to say. However, Jacob never turns out to be such a memorable character like Isaac of Dead Space, nor Chris Redfield of Resident Evil 5. I would even take it so far and say, I wonder if anyone cared about him at all. I couldn't find anything that I would sympathize with this character or find interesting, something to like. Both the visuals of the characters, their modeling is probably one of the strongest points of the Callisto Protocol. Jacob often looks behind him while he slowly walks through narrow corridors, crushing mutated skull, lifting those monstrosities with his glow and then impaling them into the questionable spikes on the wall. I get why someone would have fun with the Callisto Protocol here, like you have an electric baton that feels like it came from Warhammer 40k world, atmosphere feels sinister, and there is threat in each corner waiting to eat Jacob's face, dismember the dude and whatsoever. But let me tell you this, I think I would prefer such Warhammer 40k game, a single space marine or even an imperial guard trying to escape from that planet kinda concept, rather than a so-called sole successor of Dead Space that fails horribly. I don't know, man. It's just too disappointing after seeing all the potential and the opportunities that the Callisto Protocol had. It's just heartbreaking at this point. The combat might feel entertaining and maybe even stress relieving for some, I get that. But does it worth all the money just because of its combat? I do not think so. And sadly, combat was mostly just about beating the enemies over and over, finish the combo with a shot, dodge while they attack, wait for an opening and repeat. That was it. There could have been traps, lasers, or the other types of items that Jacob could have been used as a strategy rather than just headbutting the mutants like Warhammer 40k Space Marine, spilling blood and gore like a chaos servant. It just feels too off, you know? I never get to feel the desperation, the horror and the thrill, although Jacob is in a high security space prison with lots of scum, mutants and deadly traps. It just kinda feels like another day at the office. During the 60% of the game, Jacob tries to escape from this mutated space prison moon with his prison equipments, meaning that our inventory is quite limited. Players can craft new weapons when their 3D print schematics are found, so it's best to sell some items and parts that would help Jacob to craft items from the stations as well. However, the inventory limit of the prison equipment are quite limited, and you would find yourself missing the valuable items or even bullets, healing items, etc. My advice here would be to find an item station and sell the equipment you don't need and go back to gather the rest of these items as well. I never felt like a need to conserve my ammo or items since each and every enemy can drop the resources when Jacob steps on them like a daddy. Did you just kill a grotesque mutant with your electric baton? Yes, step on that dirty pervert's face, and that's how that bad boys like it. Get the sweet ammo or even healing item and continue your path. If you find each and every weapon, Jacob can use up to 5 different types of guns, from hand cannon to shotgun, assault rifle to automatic pistols, alongside with his electric button for melee attack. The Callisto Protocol might turn a bit into run and gun during the late game, but overall I would recommend you to master the dodging mechanics of the Callisto Protocol, hit when you find an opening, and then blast these mutants' heads or other parts off with a gun as the last combo hit. That's literally the overall combat flow. The Callisto Protocol at first actually feels like a sole successor of Dead Space series. However, with its lack of horror and thrilling elements, combat mechanics that's oriented on close combat, and the concept that is similar to the Dead Space 3 that kinda evolves into Resident Evil bootleg, was like a last nail to the coffin for me. I couldn't stop myself complaining about the wasted potential and how previous horror and survival titles did a better job, and even a tiny indie game like Signalis provided better horror mystery concept in space. The Callisto Protocol was indeed one of the most disappointing games of 2022. That could have been way better, way more memorable and thrilling experience, but the outcome is just heartbreaking.